As a long day comes to a close and the outside world slowly settles into quiet, perhaps you too are searching for a gentle place to rest your mind. Yet sometimes, what keeps us awake is not noise, but the thoughts still whispering inside. Words left unsaid, fragments of memory, feelings not yet given a name. All of them continue to move quietly beneath the surface. Welcome to Stories for Sleep, a space created especially for moments like this. Here we tell slow, gentle stories, inspired by intriguing truths from science, the mind and language. Not so that you will remember them, but so that you can let them go. Each video is a small journey where knowledge does not awaken alertness, but instead guides you deeper into a state of safety, calm, and easeful sleep. In today's video, we will explore the most fascinating truths about language. Not language for debate or analysis, but the language of rhythm, of voice, of invisible connection that reaches into the deep layers of the unconscious. You do not need to try to understand. You only need to listen. If you enjoy journeys like this, you can subscribe to Stories for Sleep, like the video, or leave a gentle comment. Each subscription helps these soothing stories reach even more tired minds in need of rest. And now, allow yourself to relax. Let us begin. As night falls and the sounds of the long day gradually soften, you may notice something familiar. The mind is not yet ready to sleep. Small thoughts continue to whisper, old memories unexpectedly return, and words left unspoken during the day still echo somewhere inside. We often believe that sleep comes from absolute silence, yet sometimes it is gentle, meaningful sound that becomes the bridge carrying us toward rest. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, human beings do not live only in the physical world, but also in an ocean of symbols and language. Every word, every rhythm, every pause touches the deeper layers of the unconscious, where the fatigue of the day still quietly resides. When we cannot understand why sleep feels distant, it may be because the mind is still trying to speak, still seeking to be heard. This video is not created for you to memorize anything, nor to offer knowledge in a loud or demanding way. Instead, it is a gentle invitation, an invitation into the strange and soothing world of language. Not only human language, but also the language of breath, a voice of silent connection between living beings. Here you may discover intriguing truths, that language begins before words, that emotion is felt before it is understood, and that even silence is speaking to you in its own way. The value of this journey does not lie in how much you learn, but in the feeling of release. When you understand that language does not exist only outside you, but flows rhythmically within you, the mind gradually stops holding itself so tightly. And when there is no longer a need to understand, analyze, or react, sleep arrives as something natural. If you are listening at the end of your day, allow yourself to slow down. No effort is required. No focus is needed. Just be here. The next part will guide you gently, more lightly, into soothing layers of language, where the mind can rest and sleep can begin. From Brack, language as a living world language, when observed slowly and deeply enough, is not a tool neatly contained in books or dictionaries. It does not appear only when humans open their mouths to speak. Language is more like a living presence, a soft current flowing through every layer of existence, from consciousness to the unconscious, from the body to emotion, from humans to other beings sharing this world. When we begin to see language as a living world, something very gentle happens. We stop trying to understand it and begin to feel it. Carl Gustav Jung emphasized that human beings live not only in the material world, but also in a symbolic one. Language is the soft tissue of that symbolic world. It breathes with us, vibrates with the heartbeat, and shifts with the state of the soul. A word does not carry meaning alone. It carries emotional history, collective memory, ancient patterns that existed long before we were born. When someone speaks, it is not only sound that is created, but a field of meaning that spreads, sometimes touching the listener before they even grasp the content. At a deeper level, language does not remain still. It moves. It flows. It bends itself to the rhythm of breath and feeling. A sad sentence carries a different rhythm from a joyful one. Comfort does not require the perfect words, only the right rhythm. At times, a familiar voice alone is enough to calm the nervous system, like a signal of safety learned very early in life. Language, therefore, belongs not only to the brain but to the body. It enters the flesh, the nervous system, the deep reflexes beyond conscious control. If we listen carefully enough, we realize that language does not begin with words. It begins with rhythm. Before a child understands the meaning of any word, the body already understands. Rhythm, the rise and fall of voice, the steady pulse of a lullaby repetition that creates safety. Here, language resembles background music for existence. And like music, it does not require analysis to work. Simply being present is enough for it to reach somewhere very deep. Seen this way, language does not only connect humans to one another, it connects species. Not through vocabulary, but through signals, vibration, movement, gaze, distance, silence. An animal senses intention not through words but posture. A being recognizes safety not through sentences but through the breath of the one nearby. Language, at its most primal level, is resonance. Jung described these as forms of communication that go straight into the unconscious. They do not need to be translated. They only need permission to occur. And this is why when humans cling too tightly to language as a rational system, right and wrong definitions and rules, they often feel exhausted. The mind tightens. Sleep drifts farther away. Because the unconscious does not operate by verbal logic, it works through images, rhythm, symbols, and sensation. When this video invites you into language as a living world, it is not guiding you toward new understanding, but toward a different state. A state where you do not need to hold information. You do not need to remember. You simply allow yourself to be carried by a gentle current. In that state, language stops being something you use and becomes something that holds you. There is something essential in listening before sleep, a sense of safety. And language, when used with care, becomes a safe container for the mind. A steady, slow voice that asks nothing of you. Words that do not push, pauses that are respected. In this space, the listener is allowed to loosen daytime control. The unconscious rises gently without threat. Language, then, is no longer words, but atmosphere, like warm light in a dark room. Not bright, not harsh, just enough to let you know you are not alone. And in that feeling of being with, the nervous system begins to settle. The heartbeat slows, breathing deepens. Sleep is no longer something to strive for, but something that naturally happens. The living world of language then does not exist outside you. It unfolds within you, moment by moment, in how you speak to yourself, in the inner voice, whispering after the lights are off. When you soften that voice, slow it, remove judgment, you are changing your inner climate. And that climate shapes how deeply you can rest. Ultimately, this opening does not lead you outward, but back home, back to the natural rhythm of being, back to a sense of connection without words. Language as a living world does not require intelligence to enter. It only asks that you relax and allow yourself to drift. And when you drift slowly enough, deeply enough, you may notice that even as words fade, understanding remains quiet, warm, and ready to carry you into sleep. And when we begin to see language as a living being, we also realize that it has never been still. Language does not lie dormant on the page, asleep in dictionaries, frozen in rigid grammatical rules. It breathes with human breath. It shifts with the gaze, with the silence between sentences, with what has not yet been spoken. Each sound leaving the lips carries not only meaning, but the speaker's inner state, trembling, hesitation, love, or quiet fatigue. In Jung's view, all human expression flows from the depths of the unconscious. Language is no exception. It is not merely a tool for expressing conscious thought, but a doorway through which archetypal images, collective memories, and ancient emotions emerge long before we learn to name them. Sometimes, we do not know why a voice feels comforting. or why a simple sentence touches us so deeply. It is because language has reached a place that does not require reason to understand. In the quiet of night, as light softens and the outside world grows still, language also changes its form. It becomes gentler, slower, like a calm stream moving through the mind. No longer a means of control or debate, language becomes a bridge connecting listener to self-present, to memory consciousness, to the dreams waiting ahead. You do not need to grasp every idea or remember anything at all. Language in this moment does not come to demand understanding, but to offer companionship, to be with a voice, to be with a rhythm, to be with yourself in a state of not having to do anything. And when you allow yourself to drift with that current, the mind loosens, as if remembering it does not need to stay awake forever. This is where our journey truly begins, not with effort to learn, but with permission to feel, not by expanding awareness, but by gently lowering it. Language now is no longer something that leads you somewhere. It is a thin blanket laid over waking thoughts, allowing them to rest. And in this gentle space, all you need to do is listen. Human language, a masterpiece of the brain. As we move deeper into the world of language, we begin to notice something nearly miraculous. Human language may be the most complex behavior the brain has ever created, yet it unfolds so quietly that we are rarely aware of it. Each time you speak a simple sentence, thousands of intricate processes occur simultaneously, as effortless as breathing, as precise as a symphony refined over millions of years of evolution. In the moment you speak, the brain does not merely choose words, it retrieves memories, anticipates the listener's response, regulates emotion, controls muscles, breath, pitch, speed, and even the pauses that seem accidental. All of this happens in fractions of a second, so fast that consciousness cannot keep track. According to Carl Gustav Jung, consciousness is only the surface of the mind, while most mental life unfolds in the darkness of the unconscious. Language, therefore, is not solely the product of controlled thinking, but the result of ongoing collaboration between these deep layers. When you speak, it is not only you who speaks. A history of experiences, unnamed emotions, and archetypal images accumulated across generations are whispering as well. Remarkably, the listener is not passive. When you hear a sentence, your brain immediately begins predicting what comes next, forming hypotheses, comparing, adjusting, correcting. When speech aligns with expectation, it feels smooth. When something unexpected arises, the brain briefly stirs, then quickly restructures meaning to keep understanding intact. This constant prediction and correction turns communication into an invisible dance between minds. No one simply transmits or receives. Both participate in a shared field of meaning, continuously adjusting to one another. This is why a deep conversation can make us feel truly seen, even when few words are spoken. And when night arrives, as the body slows and the nervous system leaves alertness, the brain continues this quiet mastery, but with a softer, deeper rhythm. Language no longer serves action or rapid response. It becomes a gentle flow where consciousness can relax without control. You do not need to analyze how the brain works. Simply know this: every sentence you hear is the result of a refined biological masterpiece designed not only to convey information, but to connect, soothe, and guide the mind back to its natural state of rest. And in that safety, the journey of language continues deeper, slower, and closer to sleep. From the outside, language may appear to be a tool for controlling the world, for requesting, explaining, persuading, naming. But if we listen more carefully, especially in quiet moments like this, we realize that language was born not from control, but from the need to connect. Before humans sought mastery, they sought understanding and presence in another's mind. Jung wrote that humans live not only through personal consciousness, but are supported by a deeper layer, the collective unconscious. In that depth, language is not merely a system learned in school. It is an ancient current shaped over countless generations, carrying emotional patterns and rhythms that feel right even before we can explain why. This may be why a slow, steady, low voice calms us, while hurried speech tightens the heart. The brain does not need content to react. It listens to rhythm first, like a child sensing the world before naming it. At this depth, language functions as a biological signal, telling the body, "You are safe," or "Pay attention." As the day closes, the brain shifts from analysis to reception. Networks of vigilance yield to memory, association, and imagination. Language no longer needs to be precise or logical. It only needs enough rhythm to let the mind drift like water carrying a leaf from shore. When we are tired, we do not want debate or deep analysis. We want a familiar voice, a story that asks nothing of us. This is not intellectual weakness, but wisdom adjusting itself for rest. Language becomes the bridge guiding consciousness back into the body. And in that release, something essential happens. The mind stops trying to do and begins allowing itself to be. Thoughts need no arrangement. Words need no memory. The brain, after weaving countless connections through the day, is permitted to loosen its threads. Part 2 closes not with a conclusion, but with a feeling. The sense that language is not a burden, but one of the most natural paths by which the mind returns to its primal state of rest. And from this foundation, we will move further back to the time when language existed before words, before meaning, when all there was were rhythm, sound, and pure listening. Language begins before words, before humans could speak. Before a single word was clearly named, language already existed. It was not in dictionaries, required no writing, and needed no precise meaning. Early language was rhythm, sound, vibration moving through living bodies. In the warm darkness of the womb, a child has never seen the world, never distinguished right from wrong, yet it listens. The steady heartbeat, the slow rise and fall of breath, the contours of a voice traveling through water and flesh. There are no words yet, familiarity exists. No meaning, yet safety is felt. Carl Jung emphasized that our earliest experiences are not stored as logical language, but as images, emotions, and biological rhythm. These memories are not remembered in the usual way, yet they profoundly shape how we respond to the world. Language at this depth is not expression, but nourishment for the soul. When a baby is born, what first turns its head is not content, but melody. Infants recognize caregivers' voices, not through words, but through rhythm, pitch, and gentle pauses. The young brain learns language in its most ancient way, through listening without judgment. Modern research only confirms what intuition has long known. Infants can distinguish languages by rhythm alone. They sense what belongs to them, before understanding any word. Language is not learned as knowledge, but absorbed like breath. Perhaps this is why in moments of deep fatigue, we return to simple sounds, a slow voice, a story without demands, a steady rhythm that allows the mind to loosen. An ancient memory awakens of a time when listening was enough to exist. Jung called this a return to the unconscious foundation, where consciousness need not control or understand. Language ceases to be symbols and becomes a lullaby, a soft current guiding the mind back to its primal state before thought divided the world. And right now, as you listen, you need not remember anything. Let the rhythm pass like breath, like gentle waves touching shore and retreating. Language has fulfilled its earliest task, not to be understood, but to soothe the mind into deeper rest. From this origin, where language was pure music, we move into a wider realm, where not only humans, but other beings organize the world through structure, order, and their own forms of grammar. If we listen long enough, we realize language never belonged solely to consciousness. Before vocabulary and grammar, it lived in the body, in the quickened heartbeat, at a familiar voice in shoulders, relaxing to a steady, low tone in the nervous system, softening through repetition. Jung believed the collective unconscious holds archetypes, primal patterns, existing before conscious language. In early rhythm, these patterns awaken. Mother, protection, safety are not concepts but sensations. Language did not describe the world. It created the first felt world. Thus, when we hear a gentle voice before sleep, the mind need not understand to be comforted. The body recognizes rhythm. The unconscious recognizes safety, and consciousness long strained by analysis is finally allowed to let go. Children learn language not through effort but presence. They do not try to memorize or pronounce correctly. They simply are listening, feeling, allowing sound to imprint like light filtering through closed eyelids. As adults, we often forget this way of learning. We turn language into a task, a tool, a means to an end. Yet deep within the nervous system longs for the old experience to hear without responding, to feel without explaining. This may be why slow stories, even voices and gentle repetition hold such power at night. They do not speak to reason but whisper to the most ancient part of us, the part that existed before the word I. Jung believed sleep is the doorway where consciousness steps aside and the unconscious emerges. And language, when used wisely, becomes a soft bridge to that doorway, not through information, but rhythm, not through logic, but steadiness. Right now, you may no longer distinguish individual words clearly, and that is perfectly fine. Language has returned to its original form, a flow of sound, slow enough that the mind does not need to grasp. There before words and thought remains only the feeling of being held. From that foundation, language later grew into structure, order, and complex systems not only in humans but throughout the living world. And that is where the next story will unfold. Structure and grammar beyond humans. When humans believe language is their exclusive domain, it is often because they look only at words. But if we step back far enough to observe the rhythm of life itself, we discover that structure existed long before writing, before speech, even before human self-awareness. In deep forests among interwoven leaves, a monkey's call is not random. One sound warns, another follows, completely changing meaning, not just danger but what kind, from where, and how to respond. The order of sounds determines how the group moves. Reverse it, and meaning collapses. Here, sequence carries meaning, a primitive grammar. In the early sky, birdsong is not mere noise. Sound patterns are placed in fixed positions. One note may open, another may only close. Chicks must listen, attempt, err, and adjust, just like children forming first sentences. This is not pure instinct, but structured learning. In the ocean, whales create long sequences of sound, repeated with stable order. A small variation can alter the entire song. What astonishes is not sound, but shared structure, the ability to recognize change and adapt collectively. Jung observed that order is a natural expression of psyche. The unconscious is not chaotic. It organizes images, symbols, and emotions into repeating patterns. When we observe non-human communication systems, we glimpse the collective unconscious itself, where meaning has form without words. Grammar, at its deepest, is not a human invention. It is life's tendency to organize experience, to survive. When sounds align, they become message. When messages repeat, they become structure. When structure is shared, it becomes language. This softens a familiar illusion that humans stand apart from the world. In truth, we are a more complex branch of the same current, always shaping chaos into form, sensation into rhythm, survival into communication. And recognizing this allows the mind to relax. You do not need to control language to understand it, just as you do not need to know every star to feel the night sky. At its deepest level, language is not something you must do correctly. It is something that is happening in forests, oceans, and within you, as your breath slows and consciousness softens into sleep. If we listen more deeply, not with ears, but with gentler attention, we notice these structures exist beyond sound. No call stands alone. It expects another. Just as in the mind, one symbol never appears alone, it draws another memory, another emotion behind it. Jung called this the teleology of psyche consciousness, always seeking place within larger order. In animal communication, no signal is free-floating. Each carries expectation. And expectation is the foundation of grammar. Notably, these structures are not written, taught as theory, or stated as rules. They are transmitted through presence. The young learn by proximity, repetition, error, and silent correction. No judgment, no grades, only harmony slowly forming. This is how the human mind learns to speak with its inner world. We do not learn to dream from manuals. We dream because the unconscious knows how to arrange images without conscious understanding. Dreams have grammar openings, endings, symbols arriving exactly when needed. When we see other species organizing sound into structure, we are not just studying biology. We are reminded that order is older than intellect. Meaning does not need explanation to exist. It only needs the right place. Perhaps this is why repetitive sound, night birds, insects, or a steady voice before sleep relaxes us. At depth, the mind recognizes familiar structure and thinks I am safe. Grammar, at its deepest, is not about correctness. It is a sign of stability. When the world holds order, life can rest. And now, as you listen with breath slowing, you need remember nothing more. Simply know this: you are part of an ancient, vast order where even silence has its place. And within that order, sleep is not the loss of consciousness, but the moment consciousness allows itself to be gently rearranged, naturally, softly, and in the right place. When language is no longer seen as a fixed system of signs, but as a living, flowing process, we begin to notice something more subtle. Language has memory, and that memory does not live in genes, but in the gentle repetition that passes from one generation to the next. In many animal species, sound is not merely a biological reflex. It carries traces of history. Whales do not sing the same song forever. Their songs change slowly over time, as if the ocean itself were remembering, forgetting, and revising itself. A new melody appears somewhere, then gradually travels across distant waters, learned again, altered, accepted. No one commands it. No one controls it. Yet, an entire community changes together. Jung once said that human beings live not only in nature, but also in psychological tradition. Patterns of behavior, emotion, and symbol are transmitted not through DNA, but through long-term exposure. Language, in this sense, is a form of living tradition, a place where collective memory is preserved as sound, rhythm, emphasis, and silence. When a young bird learns to sing, it does not merely learn to produce the correct sounds. It learns the voice of the land where it was born. The same species, but each forest has its own dialect, a slightly higher note, a slower rhythm, a very particular pause. These are not errors. They are identity. Human beings are no different. Your voice carries your homeland, your family evenings spent listening to stories, moments of comfort, and even the silences that once existed. You do not speak only with words. You speak with your lived history. Language, therefore, is never still. It breathes with the community. It ages. It renews itself. It keeps what matters and lets other things pass, not through logic, but because collective emotion has decided what is worth holding. At a deeper level, this touches a very ancient need of the mind, the need to belong. When we hear a familiar voice, a familiar way of speaking, the nervous system recognizes it instantly. This is home. We do not need to understand everything. The rhythm alone is enough for the body to soften. Perhaps that is why, before sleep, we are drawn to stories told slowly, in steady voices, not too new, not too surprising. In those moments, the mind wants to return to its deepest culture, to be listened to be with, to be continued. Language in that moment is no longer a tool of transmission. It becomes an invisible embrace, where collective memory and personal emotion meet quietly, safely, and fully, allowing us to let ourselves fall into sleep. Language as a living culture is also revealed in how it changes without permission. There is no central council deciding which sounds will survive or disappear. Change happens quietly through repetition, familiarity through being heard often enough. This mirrors how symbols form in the collective unconscious. As Jung described, no one creates them alone, yet everyone participates in sustaining them. When a new word appears and is accepted, it is not merely linguistic convenience. It signals that a community is ready to name a new experience. And when a word fades away, it is often because the experience it represented no longer lives vividly in shared life. Language in this sense is a remarkably honest record of collective emotional life. In traditional communities, cultural shifts can be sensed simply by listening to how stories are told. Faster or slower rhythm, longer or shorter sentences, whether silence is allowed. A tense society speaks more quickly. A safe society allows longer pauses. Language reflects the nervous system of an entire community, just as the heartbeat reflects the state of the body. Jung emphasized that modern humans do not lack information, but depth. And language, when reduced to a purely rational tool, can lose its healing cultural role. But when used as a living flow, language becomes a bridge between consciousness and the unconscious, between the individual and the collective. This may be why lullabies and bedtime stories exist in nearly every culture. They are not meant to convey new information. They exist to preserve familiar rhythm, a rhythm repeated across generations, enough for the nervous system to recognize that nothing needs guarding anymore. In that moment, language does not ask us to understand. It only asks us to stay, to listen, to breathe, and to allow ourselves to be held by something larger than personal thought. As you listen to these slow sounds, you are not only hearing a story, you are participating in a very ancient tradition, using language to guide the mind back to its primal state of safety. A state humans once knew well before language became hurried, goal-driven, and controlled. And when the living culture of language is activated, what occurs is not understanding but softening. A softening that spreads from the breath through the chest deep into the body. As if somewhere collective memory is whispering, you no longer need to stay awake. At this point, language has completed its deepest role. Not to speak, not to explain, but to allow life to continue gently through sleep. Communication beyond sound. When language is seen as a living culture, a gentle truth emerges. Not all communication requires sound. In fact, some of the deepest connections between living beings occur in silence, in vibrations, too subtle to name yet strong enough to be felt. In the natural world, speech is only a small branch of communication. Bees do not use sound to tell one another about a field of flowers. They dance. A precise figure-8 movement where sunlight, angle, body tilt, and timing all carry meaning. No words are spoken yet. The entire hive understands where to go, how far, and how valuable the nectar is. Here, information is not spoken, it is lived. Elephants across vast savannas communicate through vibrations traveling through the ground. A footstep, a low rumble moving through dry earth, reaching the feet of elephants far away. They hear through bones, through bodies, through sensitivity shaped by millions of years of evolution. This is communication that bypasses the ears and moves straight into primal perception. Jung said that the unconscious does not speak in rational language, but in symbols, images, and sensations. When we observe communication beyond sound, we see a deep parallel. Life does not need explanation to understand itself. It only needs synchronization. Octopuses change color in an instant, not for beauty but to speak. A sudden brightness can be a warning. A slow shift can signal calm. These messages are not encoded in words but in direct visual sensation touching the other's nervous system without translation. Ants leave chemical trails, stories written in scent. Who passed here? How long ago? Whether danger or food lies ahead. An invisible network of information spread across the ground, read not by thought but by the body. When we look at all these forms, one truth becomes clear. Language was never born to speak but to connect. Sound is only one medium, and humans in modern life may have grown accustomed to speaking while forgetting how to feel. Before you learned to speak, you already knew how to communicate. You sensed another's breathing. You recognized safety in a slow, low voice. You understood tension through silence. These abilities never disappeared. They were simply covered by too many words. And now, as you lie here listening without needing to respond, without needing full understanding, you are returning to a very ancient form of communication, one that requires no effort, no alertness, only gentle presence. In this state, the mind no longer clings to meaning. It begins to follow rhythm, pauses, soft repetition, like bees dancing together, like elephants listening to the ground, like ants following a familiar scent. And here, very gently, language begins to leave sound behind, making space for sleep. Perhaps the most tender quality of communication beyond sound is that it does not demand focused attention. It does not require concentration, memory, or response. It simply exists like moonlight entering a room. Whether you look or not, the light remains. Jung believed that the deepest layer of the human psyche operates not through logic or words, but through archetypal images and ancient sensations. When we attune to wordless communication, we come very close to that collective unconscious where beings understood one another long before language existed. Humans have never lost this capacity. We still sense the atmosphere of a room the moment we enter. We know when someone is sad even when they say, "I'm fine." We feel safe with a slow, steady voice and uneasy with hurried speech, even when the content is harmless. This is communication beyond sound communication of the nervous system. Modern life is filled with words, but rarely with full-body listening. We hear with our ears, but forget our breath. We attend to sentences, but overlook the silence between them. And yet it is in those silences that the deepest information is carried. Between two breaths, between two sentences, between one thought and the next, there is a soft space. A space that does not need filling. Like the darkness between stars revealing how vast the sky truly is. As you lie here listening, you may no longer follow every idea. Images may arise and fade. This is completely fine, because now communication no longer resides in content, but in rhythmic alignment between the voice and your state. Like an infant who does not understand words yet feels comfort. Like animals sensing intention before action. Like feeling with someone even without conversation. Language beyond sound is no longer a tool of the mind. It becomes a flow of presence. It does not ask, "Do you understand?" It only whispers, "You are here." And in that state, the mind no longer needs to analyze. It loosens. Tension thins. Breath slows naturally. The body recognizes safety, no vigilance required, no control needed. This is the language sleep understands best. Not a lullaby, not a story with a beginning and an end, but the steady rhythm of life continuing. When words fade, communication remains. When meaning softens, connection stays. And in this very deep quiet, you do not need to do anything at all. Just allow yourself to drift. Language and lived space. When sound is no longer the center of communication, when words step back, something else comes into focus space. Space is not merely the setting in which language occurs, it is one of its building blocks. How we speak, how we understand, even how we think are shaped by the spaces we inhabit. Some languages do not revolve around left or right, front or back. Instead, they anchor the world in absolute directions, north, south, east, west. For speakers of these languages, space does not move with the body. The body must constantly adjust to space. Even in darkness, they know which way they are facing. They feel the sun, the wind, the horizon as part of awareness. In such languages, a sentence does more than convey information. It locates the speaker within the universe. Every utterance becomes an act of placing oneself in the world's order. Space becomes a silent compass guiding thought. Jung believed that the human psyche does not exist separate from its environment, but is in constant dialogue with it. When language reflects living space, it does more than describe reality. It teaches the mind how to dwell within that reality. A language born of forests, mountains, and rivers cultivates a different consciousness than one shaped by concrete walls and digital clocks. Some communities do not say time has passed, but the light has changed color. They do not say it is time, but the birds have begun calling the morning. Time there is not abstract flow, but visible transformation in space. Language becomes a bridge between people and landscape, between consciousness and nature. For those of us living in enclosed spaces, language slowly loses this connection. We speak often of time, but rarely feel it. We orient ourselves by calendars and clocks rather than light or breath. And perhaps this is why the mind so often feels tired. When hearing about languages deeply tied to space, there is no need to learn them or understand their structure. Simply allow the idea to touch you gently. Language was once a way of being in the world, not separating from it. Right now, as you lie down, the space around you is also speaking. The ceiling, the darkness, the temperature, the distance between your body and the walls all send subtle signals to your nervous system, and your body is listening without effort. At its deepest level, language is not only what we produce, it is how we are held. The feeling of being placed correctly, the reassurance of not being lost. And when space becomes familiar, when the mind no longer needs to orient itself, it begins to let go. Like night falling slowly without announcement. Like sleep arriving not by command but by permission. You do not need to go anywhere. You do not need to understand anything more. Just be here, in this space. Language has finished its work. Now rest may begin. When we say language is a map of lived space, it also means that every mind carries an invisible map within, not drawn in lines or ink, but shaped by memory, habit, and words heard repeatedly from very early on. Even now, with eyes closed, your mind knows the size of the room, the height of the ceiling, the distance between your body and the outer world. Space has been internalized. Jung described this as the process of carrying the world inside oneself. When language is bound to space, it becomes a guide, preventing the mind from losing its way. Words of direction, ways of speaking about time through landscape become anchors of awareness, helping a person know where they are, not only geographically, but existentially. Perhaps this is why, when humans lose direct connection with natural space, language grows more abstract, more detached from the body. We speak of pressure, emptiness, being stuck as mental states, yet they are spatial metaphors. Pressure is being pushed down. Emptiness is lacking a place to rest. Being stuck is having no path forward. Language never left space. We simply forgot to listen for the space hidden inside words. In the moments before sleep, the boundary between outer space and inner space softens. The room ceases to be a place for orientation and becomes a cocoon. The words you hear no longer need to point or describe. They only need to create a sense of being held a space safe enough to release vigilance. Language then becomes a kind of soft architecture. It builds no walls, raises no pillars, but creates stability through rhythm, repetition, and the absence of demand. And your body, always responsive to space, begins to lower its defenses. You may notice this in your breathing. It slows, not because you intend it to, but because space no longer presses you forward. There is nowhere to go, nothing to prepare for. Language has brought you here to a very natural stopping point. And in that pause, the mind no longer needs its map. It can fold it away, set it aside. Like a traveler finally finding a place to rest without needing to know where the road will turn tomorrow. Space is no longer outside you. It is the feeling of being held still, supported, in the right place. And as inner space settles, language too will grow quiet, making room for what comes next. Softer, deeper. Voice, emotion, and invisible signals. When space has quieted, when the mind no longer needs to locate itself, the next thing that becomes clear is the voice. Not what is said, but how it is spoken. Because before a word is understood, the voice has already touched emotion. Carl Jung emphasized that emotion always precedes reason. Language follows this rule as well. Before you know what someone is saying, your body already knows how their voice feels gentle or tense, safe or unsettling, close or distant. These signals travel straight into the nervous system without passing through thought. A slow voice can calm the heartbeat. A brief pause between sentences can create the feeling of being heard. A deep breath hidden behind words can cause the listener to breathe more deeply as well. These are silent conversations, body speaking to body, long before the mind joins in. You may remember hearing the voice of someone familiar in the dark. You did not need to see them. You did not need to understand every word. The moment the voice appeared, something in you relaxed. That is not memory of images or concepts, but emotional memory, what Jung called memory, living in the unconscious. A voice carries history. It carries moments of comfort, reassurance, nights once lulled into sleep. And when the unconscious recognizes a suitable voice, it understands vigilance is no longer required. In the state before sleep, these invisible signals grow stronger. The mind loosens its control, allowing the body to respond freely. Steady rhythm replaces thought. Stable tone replaces worry. A well-timed pause replaces the need to understand. Language now is no longer information. It is presence. A presence that does not ask for response, that does not demand reaction. It simply stays in rhythm. And if you notice your eyelids growing heavier, your breath deepening, it is not because you have understood something new. It is because invisible signals have done their work. They have told your body it is safe to rest now. You do not need to remember this. You do not need to analyze it. Just allow the voice to keep flowing. Because when language reaches the right emotional layer, sleep will find its own way. Perhaps the most mysterious quality of the voice lies not in what is spoken, but in what is left unsaid. In every sentence there are small spaces, gaps between syllables, pauses that seem meaningless. Yet emotion lives there. Jung believed the unconscious communicates not through concepts, but through rhythm, image, and sensation. A slow sentence can carry reassurance without reassuring content. A stable tone can replace countless promises. Humans evolved to hear emotion before meaning. Long before words existed, our ancestors distinguished danger from safety through voice alone. And even today, when you hear a gentle, steady voice, your nervous system responds as if being protected. Sometimes you do not need explanation. You only need a voice that does not demand, that does not rush you to understand. A voice that simply exists like a small lamp in the night, neither bright nor dim, just enough to remind you that you are not alone. As sleep approaches, the boundary between hearing and feeling dissolves. Words no longer stand apart. They blend into breath, into heartbeat. And eventually you are no longer listening with your ears, but with your whole body. You may notice breath slowing, shoulders dropping, jaw softening. This is not effort. It is the body recognizing a safe rhythm to synchronize with. Language in this moment is no longer a tool of consciousness. It becomes a wave, and you do not need to swim, only float. Only allow yourself to be carried by the familiar rhythm of another human voice. Jung believed healing does not always require understanding. Sometimes it only requires sharing a frequency, and the voice is the shortest path for two nervous systems to meet without explanation. So if now your thoughts begin to blur, if clarity fades, this is not loss of control. It is a sign that language has completed its task. It has guided you from the world of meaning into the world of sensation. And there, sleep does not need to be invited. It only needs to be allowed. When the voice has touched emotion, when rhythm has soothed the nervous system, a deeper layer of language gradually comes into view. This is the place where language does not merely convey what we think, but reveals who we are in relation to others. Carl Jung believed that identity does not exist in isolation. It is formed through relationship. A human being truly comes to know who they are only by seeing themselves reflected in the gaze responses and presence of others. Language is the most delicate mirror of that process. The way you speak to a stranger is not the same as the way you speak to someone close. The way you speak when you need to protect yourself is different from when you allow yourself to be vulnerable. Language shifts with relationship, and within that shifting identity also moves from moment to moment. There are languages in the world that require speakers to clarify their social position before speaking, not to limit them, but to remind them that every utterance carries responsibility toward the relationship it enters. Language, therefore, is not merely a personal tool, but a thread that weaves community. You can sense this in everyday life. When you speak with someone you trust, your voice naturally softens. Sentences grow longer. Pauses appear more often. But in tense environments, speech becomes short, sharp, and defensive. Language reflects our inner state, but it also reshapes that state. In other words, you do not only express who you are through speech, you are becoming that person in the very act of speaking. Jung described this as the ongoing dialogue between the conscious ego and the relational self. Language is the bridge between these worlds. When relationships feel safe, language becomes shelter. When relationships feel unsafe, language becomes a barrier. But in the space of sleep, all barriers may be lowered. You do not need to define a role. You do not need to prove yourself. You do not need to choose the right words. Here, you are not speaking to be understood. You are simply being with. And in this state of not needing to perform, identity can rest. You are not the storyteller, not the listener. You are simply a presence being held by the shared rhythm of language. Language then no longer separates me and other. It becomes a connecting flow. And within that flow, you are allowed to dissolve slightly, no longer needing to hold tightly to an image of yourself. If at this moment you no longer think about who is speaking or who is listening, that is a good sign. Identity, like breath, also needs moments when it is not being noticed. And when identity is allowed to rest, sleep arrives more gently, more deeply, and more naturally. Perhaps the most subtle aspect of language in relationship lies not in what is spoken, but in what is permitted to be spoken. Every community, every family, every relationship has its own linguistic territories. Words that may be said, and words that remain held in silence. These boundaries are not always clear, but the unconscious always knows them. Carl Jung suggested that human beings wear many masks, each activated in a particular relational space. Language is the material from which these masks are formed. When you change forms of address, alter rhythm, or choose silence, you are shifting roles without needing full awareness. Exhaustion rarely comes from relationships themselves. It comes from the effort of constantly holding a role, remembering who you are speaking to, how far you are allowed to go. In daytime life, this is necessary. But when night arrives, these structures may be released. Language in the space before sleep is no longer a tool for defining social position. It becomes a soft thread connecting minds without distinction. No above or below. No correct role or incorrect role. Only equal presence. There are moments when you feel comfortable beside someone, even in silence. That is when relationship has moved beyond functional language into existential language. Jung described this as the meeting of two unconscious minds, a meeting that requires no explanation. And when you listen to a voice suitable for sleep, you are not entering a social dialogue. You are entering a relationship that asks nothing of you. One where you need not respond, need not appear intelligent, need not maintain an image. Language now no longer constructs identity. It allows identity to flow. You do not need to know who you are in this story. You do not need a position. You only need to be within the shared stream of sound, where difference no longer matters. If you notice that you are no longer following each sentence or idea, this is not distraction. It is a sign that your relationship with language has shifted into a supportive form. Here, language does not ask who you are. It simply stays with you. And in that unconditional staying, your body understands it is time to rest. Creativity and the evolution of language. When identity has been set down, when relationships no longer demand roles, another quality of language emerges: creativity. Not loud creativity, but quiet change. Slow, subtle, unfolding over spans of time so long we rarely notice it happening. Carl Jung believed that creativity does not belong solely to consciousness. Most novelty arises from the unconscious, where images, memories, and emotions quietly combine in unpredictable ways. Language evolves in the same manner. There is no central authority, no master plan, only countless humans and other beings adapting to their surroundings. When environments change, language changes. When circumstances demand it, new signals are born. A new sound, a new gesture, a new way of speaking. If it connects more effectively, aids survival, or creates belonging, it remains. If not, it quietly disappears. This happens beyond humanity as well. Many animals create new signals when old ones lose effectiveness. A call is adjusted, a rhythm altered, a new form of communication tested silently, and if it is answered, it becomes part of the shared system. In humans, this process never stops. The language you use today is not the language of generations past, not because someone decided to change it, but because millions of small interactions slowly shifted meaning, rhythm, and emotional tone. Jung believed that while the collective unconscious preserves ancient patterns, the way those patterns manifest is always changing. Language is where they find new form, new stories, new words, new imagined worlds, where humans test possibilities not yet lived. When humans invent fictional languages, they are not merely playing with sound. They are creating new psychological spaces, places where identity, relationship, and meaning may be rearranged. This is waking dream work. And that dream follows unconscious logic. Before sleep, this creativity does not need to be understood or analyzed. You do not need to track the evolution of language. Simply sense that what you are hearing is the result of a very long current one that brought language here and will carry it onward. You do not need to hold on to anything. Language knows how to change on its own, and in the same way your mind may let go, drifting with the slow rhythm towards sleep. Language does not evolve in great leaps. It evolves through tiny deviations. A slightly different pronunciation, a word used in a new context, a silence held longer than usual. And within these seemingly minor variations, something shifts inside the collective psyche. Jung described this as the soul's self-regulating process. When old forms can no longer contain new experience, the unconscious expands the boundaries of expression. Language is among the first places where this expansion appears. Like a dream retold many times, subtly altered each time, until the story takes on a new shape. Creativity in language is rarely dramatic. Most of the time it is quiet, humble, nearly invisible. It happens in everyday conversation when someone chooses to speak more slowly, more gently, or not at all. Each choice leaves a faint trace in the shared current. Jung believed the unconscious is never hurried. It works at its own pace, like groundwater seeping through stone. Language does the same. The deepest changes are often invisible at first. Only in hindsight do we see that how humans speak about the world has shifted, and with it how they experience the world. When societies are unstable, language grows cautious. When meaning is sought, language becomes more symbolic. When fear spreads, speech shortens. And when safety returns, sentences lengthen again, softer, more open, like breath released after long restraint. In bedtime stories, this is especially clear. Language here does not need precision. It does not persuade with logic. It only needs to feel safe enough for the mind to drift. Words are chosen not because they are correct, but because they are gentle. In this state, language returns to its most ancient function, soothing. Before humans used words to debate or record history, they used them to lull children the sick themselves through anxious nights. This is primal creativity sound, not meant to be understood, but accompanied. Perhaps this is the deepest evolutionary direction of language, not toward complexity, but toward subtlety. Fewer words, more feeling. Less explanation, more presence. Language learning to release meaning, rather than grasp it. In this moment as you listen, you do not need to keep up. Language has completed its task. It has brought you here when no new signal is required, no new creation needed. Only breath remains, and the space between words, where language, after a very long journey, is allowed to rest. Language as memory and story language does not merely remember the past. It recreates the past each time it is spoken. According to Carl Jung, memory does not lie still in the mind like stored objects in a warehouse. Memory is living imagery, and each time we touch it, it changes form. Language is the hand that touches it. When we tell a story, we do not reopen a fixed recording. We reconstruct experience through present emotion, belief, and state of being. A memory told through language is never identical to itself from yesterday. Change one word, extend one pause, omit one detail, and the entire feeling of the past shifts. Jung described this as the unconscious. Participating, a deep part of us quietly adjusts the story to fit who we are becoming. Thus, story is not merely a vessel for memory. It is the space where memory continues to live. In that space, memory is not frozen, but allowed to soften, bend, even heal. What once hurt may grow lighter when told in a different voice. What was once vague may become clearer when placed in the right sequence of words. Jung believed humans understand themselves, not through data but through symbols. And story is language's most complete symbolic form. When we hear a story, the mind does not analyze it, participates. It enters character setting, rhythm, and through that participation, personal memory resonates with collective memory. This is why learning through stories is easier than rote memorization. Stories let memory cling to emotion, imagery, and rhythm. Language becomes experience rather than symbols. Memory prefers experience. It flows naturally without force. In stories heard before sleep, this effect deepens. As the body relaxes, the conscious guard softens, and language enters deeper regions of the mind. There, story does not need climax or conclusion. It only needs steady rhythm and a safe voice. Jung believed sleep is when the unconscious takes over. Stories heard just before sleep are like seeds placed into the softest soil, not to sprout into thought but to dissolve into feeling. Familiar feeling, guided feeling, the sense that everything will be all right. At its deepest level, language does not exist to preserve exact events but to help the mind live more gently with memory. Story does not demand remembering. It simply sits beside us, telling slowly until memory no longer needs naming. At this point, you do not need to retain content. Language has finished its work. Memory may rest. The story may settle. And you may simply let the mind drift into the quiet space behind the telling. The stories we carry through life are rarely exact accounts of what happened. They are what has been repeated most often in the silence of the mind. Each retelling keeps one detail, lets another fade. Gradually, the story no longer belongs to the past, it becomes part of identity. Jung called this the inner narrative, the story the ego uses to understand itself. But here is the subtlety: the story is not fixed. It can be retold in a different voice. And when the voice changes, the person changes. Language gives us this rare capacity, not to change what happened, but to change how it lives within us. A memory once heavy when told in a safe space may become neutral. A fear once sharp when placed in a longer story may become a necessary passage. Jung believed healing does not come from erasing memory, but from placing it correctly within one's life story. That is why humans told stories long before writing existed. Before history, there was myth. Before data, there was legend. These stories were not meant to describe the external world accurately, but to reflect the inner world, shared fears, hopes, dreams of humanity. When you listen to a story before sleep, you step into that ancient tradition. No one asks you to remember details. No one demands full comprehension. The story simply exists like a river, flowing steadily in the dark, giving the mind something gentle to hold, instead of wandering in worry. Language in this moment is no longer a tool of thought. It becomes breath. Each slow sentence whispers to the unconscious, "You are safe now. You may rest." As the story settles, memory does not vanish. It changes state from sharp image to vague feeling, from thought to soft background hum. Jung believed this is when the mind stops trying to control and begins trusting its natural flow. If ideas now feel scattered, images no longer connect, clearly this is not distraction. It is release. Language is withdrawing politely, making space for sleep. And the story, though unfinished in the usual sense, has fulfilled its deepest purpose, to bring you to the threshold of rest, where memory no longer needs telling and the mind no longer needs to do anything. Silence is also language. When the story settles, when words grow sparse, we often think language has ended. But for Carl Jung, this is precisely where an older form of communication begins to speak silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is the space where meaning breathes. In daily life, we often treat silence as absence. Absence of words, response, control. But at the deepest level of the mind, silence is fullness. There is no compulsion to interpret, no need to name every sensation. Everything is allowed simply to be. Jung believed the unconscious does not speak in complete sentences. It speaks in images, sensations, small bodily movements, and very often in silence. When we stop filling the mind with words, the unconscious finally has room to reorganize itself. You may recognize this in familiar moments, a long gaze that needs no explanation, a pause between two people who understand the peace of sitting beside someone without speaking. No new information is transmitted, yet connection deepens. The body understands silence in its own way. Heart rate slows, breath becomes even and deep. The nervous system releases vigilance. Brain regions responsible for analysis and control yield to those responsible for restoration and dreaming. Silence, therefore, is not the end of language. It is language having completed its task. In many ancient cultures, silence was considered sacred, not because it was mysterious, but because it was honest. Words can conceal, embellish, distort. Silence cannot. It simply reflects the present state of the soul. Before sleep, silence becomes the gentlest companion. It does not ask what you did today. It does not require you to improve, understand, or remember. It says through its wordlessness that you are enough. If now, as you listen, the spaces between sentences loosen your grip on meaning, this is not loss of focus. It is the mind learning to let go, letting go of language, letting go of story, letting go of the need to stay awake. Silence is doing what words cannot, allowing rest without reason. And within this silence, sleep does not arrive as an action, but as permission. Silence is also where language is freed from its duty to explain. Without words, the mind no longer chooses right or wrong, analyzes or compares. All layers of awareness soften like water settling after wind fades. Jung emphasized that deep healing does not occur through intellectual understanding, but through allowing oneself to be with experience, without interpretation. Silence is the condition for that state. It does not force meaning, it lets meaning emerge or dissolve in its own rhythm. In modern life, true silence is rare. Even when we are quiet, inner dialogue continues, streams of thought, unanswered questions, whispered self-judgment. But the silence Jung spoke of is not merely the absence of sound, it is the calming of inner dialogue. As questions slow, as thoughts stop crowding one another, a different space appears. A space that does not require you to be anyone. No identity, no role. Only the light presence of breathing, lying down, existing. At its deepest level, silence is the language of safety. Before humans learned to speak, the body already knew what it meant to be held, to feel steady heartbeat, undemanding presence. When you sink into silence before sleep, the body recognizes that ancient signal: nothing more needs to be done. You may notice that as silence deepens, time itself feels different. Boundaries between before and after, between one thought and the next, soften. This is not loss of control. It is the mind returning to its natural state, when not stretched by language. Jung called this the moment when the ego yields to the total psyche. No more, I am listening. No more, I must understand. Only slow awareness drifting like a boat anchored in still water. And in this stillness, sleep need not be named. It is not a destination, but what happens when resistance dissolves. When language stops, when silence is deep enough, sleep arrives like mist, unannounced, unnoticed, gently settling. If you find yourself no longer following each word, if awareness softens at the edges, this is not missing the content. The content has fulfilled its purpose. Silence is receiving the rest, and you only need to let that happen, surrendering into the rhythm of connection. After silence has opened a space wide enough, what remains is no longer thought, but rhythm. The rhythm of breath, the rhythm of the heart. A rhythm so ancient it existed long before humans knew how to name anything at all. At its deepest level, language has never been only words. It has always been synchronization. When two people speak, their bodies naturally attune to one another. Breathing slows. Heartbeats gradually align. Eyes and posture begin to mirror each other. This is not a learned skill, but an instinct for connection embedded in the nervous system. Carl Jung believed that human beings are not separate from the world, but always embedded within an invisible web of mind-body connections. When we listen, it is not only the ears that listen, but the entire body participating in a shared field of sensation. At this moment, you do not need to remember what you have heard. You do not need to hold your attention. The only thing left is to allow yourself to drift with the natural rhythm unfolding within you. Perhaps your body feels slightly heavier now. Muscles begin to release. Awareness softens, no longer sharp. These are signs of trust. The body recognizes that it no longer needs to stay alert. In this state, the boundary between inside and outside begins to blur. You are no longer someone listening to a story about language. You are within the very current that all living beings participate in, a place where information, emotion, and life itself circulate continuously without words. Trees sway gently with the wind. The ocean carries waves across thousands of miles. Stars hold one another in place through invisible gravity. And your body right now is holding itself through quiet yet precise rhythms. Jung called this a return to wholeness. No ego trying to control, no need to understand. Only the feeling of being supported by a very gentle, very stable order that existed long before you were born. If your mind begins to drift away from the words, that is natural. If vague images appear and then dissolve, let them pass. No need to hold on, no need to follow. You do not lose connection by letting go. You are returning to the place where connection has always existed. From here, sleep is no longer something to achieve. It is simply the next movement of the rhythm. And if you notice, even when you are no longer focused on each sentence, something within you is still listening. Not with the ears, but with the soft, full presence of your being in this moment. When language reaches its farthest edge, it no longer needs to be spoken. It dissolves into a feeling of safety, into familiarity, into the quiet, knowing that you are exactly where you need to be, without moving, without effort, without becoming anything else. In Jungian psychology, there is a state in which the ego no longer stands at the center. Consciousness gently steps back, making room for a deeper layer, a place where everything functions without instruction. Sleep is the natural doorway into that space. Here, you do not need to try to sleep. You do not need to let go deliberately. Your body has known how to do this for a very long time, from before memory, before names for the world, before any concept of tomorrow. Notice your breath, not to change it, but simply to recognize that it continues on its own. Inhale, exhale. No message, no response required. Between each breath, there are very small spaces, brief silences that are complete. It is in these spaces that the mind rests most deeply. No thoughts, no images, no stories. If a thought passes through, allow it to move on, like a distant sound fading into the night. You do not need to push it away. Gentleness does not come from control, but from permission. Now, language is no longer something you are receiving. It is something flowing around you, like warm water holding you, like kind darkness settling in like a wordless lullaby. You do not need to remember how far you've come. You do not need to fully understand anything. Any understanding that matters will settle where it belongs. And if right now awareness begins to fade, if the boundary between listening and sleeping grows unclear, then you are moving in the right direction. There is no clear ending to this journey, only a very gentle transition, from listening to resting, from presence to sleep. You may leave everything else to the night and allow yourself to be at ease. Language is a shared energy field. As words grow sparser, meaning no longer needs to be followed, another layer of language reveals itself. This is no longer the language of sentences, but the language of presence. At its deepest level, language resembles a field of vibration, where all beings, all minds, all breaths resonate together, even without sound. You do not need to grasp this intellectually. Simply feel how calm is spreading through your body. Think of moments when you have sat beside someone familiar in silence. No words spoken, yet connection remained. Not because information was exchanged, but because two nervous systems attuned themselves to the same rhythm. Carl Jung suggested that beneath individual consciousness lies a deeper, shared psyche, where humans connect not through words, but through patterns, rhythms, and primordial sensations. At that level, language does not need to be voiced. It exists as a background current, always present, always supportive. A familiar voice soothes not because of its content, but because of the biological rhythm it carries. Steady pitch, slow pace, even breathing. All of it sends an ancient signal: you are safe. And when the body receives this signal long enough, gently, evenly, the nervous system releases vigilance. Heart rate slows, shoulders drop, jaw unclenches. Consciousness no longer stands guard. Now you are no longer listening with your ears. You are being held by sound, by rhythm, by a presence that is invisible yet familiar. Language becomes a space, not a sequence of signs. You may no longer remember what the previous sentence said. That is perfectly fine. In this state, memory is no longer the task. Rest is. Let your breath find its own path. Let heaviness gather behind the eyelids. Let the boundary between self and world soften. In this energy field, there are no questions, no answers, only a quiet synchronization between your breath and the stillness around you. If you are drifting, if thoughts scatter, if images blur, this is not losing control. It is a sign that you are leaving the language of the day and entering the language of sleep. Here, there is nothing more to do. Language is no longer something to track. It becomes a distant, delicate background, like wind moving through curtains deep into the night. You may not hear every word, yet you still sense their gentle presence, like a hand resting lightly on your shoulder. At this depth, the mind no longer analyzes. It listens only to rhythm, the rhythm of the voice of the breath of life, naturally slowing down without force. Something special happens. As humans approach sleep, the boundary between inside and outside dissolves. Sound no longer comes from somewhere, but seems to arise within you. Space grows vague. Time is no longer measured in seconds or minutes. Here, language no longer serves to communicate. It becomes a wave, a subtle vibration reminding the nervous system there is no need to stay alert, no need to control. You may notice you are no longer trying to understand, and that feels good. Like lying beneath a night sky without naming the stars. You do not need to know constellations. You only need to know they are there, and so are you. That is enough. Language experienced as an energy field no longer separates. It asks for no response. It demands no sharp attention. It simply exists steady, stable, supportive, and within that support, the body begins to do what it has known how to do for a very long time: sleep. If a thought drifts by, let it pass like a thin cloud. No need to hold it, no need to push it away. Let it dissolve into the expanding stillness. You do not need to go to sleep. Sleep will come to you once all effort has ceased. There is no right or wrong here, no understanding or misunderstanding, only a familiar feeling, permission to rest. As language dissolves into breath, and breath dissolves into silence, you are standing at the threshold of the final place, where words are no longer needed. You do not need to do anything more. just remains still. When language fades, understanding remains. When language fades, it does not mean everything disappears. It simply means nothing needs to be named anymore. In this moment, words have completed their task. They have slowly guided you through a world of connection, rhythm, and life, whispering to itself in countless ways. And now, like a friend who understands language, steps back so you may be alone with a very primal sense of safety. You do not need to remember what you heard. You do not need to keep any ideas. You do not need to carry any understanding into sleep. The deepest understanding does not lie in what is said, but in the state you are now in. A state where the boundary between self and world no longer feels clear, where there is no separation between listener and voice, only a slow, steady current carrying you. Sleep in this sense is not the shutting down of consciousness. It is a return to ancient biological rhythms, where the body knows exactly what to do when thought no longer pushes it. There, you do not need language to understand. You do not need words to connect. You only need to be present. If any feeling remains, it may be the feeling of being with yourself, with your breath, with the quiet night around you. Language has shown the way. Now it gently disappears. And in that quiet space, you are allowed to sleep. No effort required. No destination to reach. Just letting sleep arrive as it always does when nothing stands in the way. If you have reached this point and no longer follow every sentence, that is perfectly fine. In fact, it means your mind is doing exactly what it needs to do, releasing analysis, releasing understanding, releasing control. Carl Jung suggested that beneath conscious language lies a deeper shared layer, where images, sensations, and rhythms existed before concepts. At that depth, we do not hear with ears, but feel with the entire body. Sleep is the natural doorway back to that place. Here, there is no right or wrong, no idea to remember, no task waiting to be completed. Only breath finding its slow rhythm again. Only the body becoming heavier, safer. Only darkness doing its gentle work. Language, once its guiding role is complete, dissolves into silence, like a river merging with the sea. You do not need to know where it goes, only that the water remains, life continues, and you are still being held. Perhaps now the boundary between the voice and your own thoughts is fading. This is natural before sleep. The mind no longer needs stories to protect or orient itself. It is allowed to rest. If any tension from the day remains, let it soften with a slow exhale. No need to push it away. Just do not hold it. Sleep is not somewhere you must go. It is something you are allowed to fall into. And when you fall, there is nothing dangerous. The night is more familiar than you realize. You have passed through it thousands of times in your life. No greeting required, no farewell needed. Only a gentle transition. If you fall asleep here, that is perfect. If you linger a little longer, that is perfect too. Nothing needs to be done correctly. And in this final moment, as language nearly dissolves completely, only one simple thing is whispered, not in words, but in feeling. You are safe. You are allowed to rest. And tonight, you may sleep deeply. As this journey reaches its quiet end, you may sense something very natural happening the mind is no longer trying to grasp. Thoughts of language, sound, structure, meaning have fulfilled their role and gently withdrawn like a dim light turning off when it is no longer needed. Language, after all, was never meant to strain us or demand constant understanding. It first appeared as a bridge, a way for life, to touch life, for one mind not to be alone in the vastness of existence. And once that bridge has been crossed, we do not need to remain standing on it. We are allowed to step down, to rest. Carl Jung suggested that behind all conscious expression lies a deeper layer, where humans speak not in words but in rhythm, image, and primal sensation. Sleep is the doorway back to that layer. There you do not need to explain who you are. You do not need to define what is happening. You simply exist gently. If today you have spoken too much, thought too much, explained too much, tonight you do not need to do any of that. No one is asking you to understand. No one is waiting for your response. No question needs answering. Only breath slowly returning to its natural pace. Only the body allowed to grow heavy, safe, supported. Only silence spreading, not empty but full of life. You may not remember everything you heard. That is perfectly fine. This content was not meant to be remembered but absorbed like moonlight softening water without analysis. As you sink deeper, language will fade like sea foam, but connection will remain. Quiet, steady, like a background pulse keeping the world in motion. And if now your eyelids feel heavy, if thoughts drift loosely, if the line between listening and sleeping fades, you do not need to resist. You are doing this exactly right. Sleep is not a place you must reach. It is a natural state that arises when nothing needs to be held anymore. And tonight you have already let go enough. Before you fully surrender to sleep, allow me to whisper one small thing not to remember, only to feel. You have done enough for today. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to rest. If journeys like this help your mind settle, if you wish for more nights gently lulled by knowledge, feeling, and calm, you may subscribe to Stories for Sleep. Each video is created as a safe space where you do not need to stay awake or try. You simply arrive and rest. New stories will always be waiting, slow, steady, and deep enough to help you sleep more peacefully each night. And now, there is nothing more you need to do. Let the breath slow. Let the darkness hold you. Let sleep come in its own way. Sleep deeply. May your night be peaceful, and I will meet you again in some gentle dream.